Here is part 2 of our interview with Kimmi Kappenberg.
Can I ask you about the famous argument with Alicia?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Because it's like, you can just tell that people what was the deal there? You guys were just never quite, because at first I saw her say, okay, sweetie. And the next thing you know, she's like, we never got along. And I was like, okay, what's true?
She was being nice to you in the first few episodes, being like, I understand, you don't need to be here. And then it was like a switch went off and immediately it was like, oh, you don't want me? You're wrong.
And there's finger wagging.
Yes. I mean, Alicia's biggest fan is Alicia. Okay. She's just very proud of herself. And she's one of those that always wants to be heard. And like I said, my first season playing with her, I got to defend myself instead of, learning to walk away. But she and we just didn't click for whatever reasons. She's not somebody that I would have picked to be my friend. But it got to the point where, we're in the same tribe here. We got to work together, but we weren't, because it was always her way, her way, her way, her way. And when we won the reward challenge with the chickens kept producing eggs because I was feeding them and taking care of them. So they weren't stressed. So they were eating eggs. So I'm like, we have this constant source of protein.
They didn't show that.
Yeah, they didn't show any eggs at all.
They were producing eggs. They were very happily producing
production, manipulating the story.
Well, but it was like exactly what happened in season 1, where they were like these. Maybe it was Kelly who was observational enough to say these chickens are too stressed. They're not going to produce eggs. And I was curious if that was going to be the same thing. So I would have liked to have known as an audience that you were nurturing them, and
you were nurturing them, and they were happy.
No wonder. Yes. And if they're producing eggs, because the only thing we see is that it cuts straight to Mike, up in the morning, was he
so
that he like, I'm going to kill a chicken without asking anybody. And I was like, I wonder if that was true.
And see, that's the whole irony of all this, because everybody got pissed at Mike for killing a chicken without asking everybody. Because why? There were days when we were getting eggs, and there were days when we were getting fish. And when I had that fight with Alicia, and I had said to her, my whole argument was, we don't need to kill a chicken on a day that it's producing an egg, or we're catching fish, or Mike just killed a pig. You don't need to kill a chicken that day. Let it produce. And so if you listen to the fight, I think you can hear some of that. And then she's like, I'm tired of hearing about the fucking chickens. And sorry. And I'm like, well,
we cuss. It's okay.
There was, okay. I had an actual legitimate reason. It was like, okay, this is why I don't think we should kill a chicken today. Not because I'm not telling you not to eat the chicken, but because you had fish, you have pig, and it's producing eggs. So why don't you wait every other day? And that's when she's like, oh, the protein, we need protein. Now, when my season came out on DVD, we had gone into the city, and in that DVD package of the whole season, there's the regular episodes, and then there's commentary of people. So there's me, Alicia, and Jeff Varner who went and did the commentary on that. And she even said in that, she goes, no, Kimmi was right. We didn't need to kill the chickens every day, but she just wanted to be right and argue for the sake of arguing, instead of being like, yeah, no, Kimmi was right. And she said that.
Right. It seemed like it wasn't so much about the actual subject. It just becomes about human nature. Sometimes we just want to debate and be right in an argument. Yeah.
Like politics. They do it all the time.
But just true to a personal trainer, we need that protein. We need that protein.
Yeah.
Well, but you're right too. It's like, I mean, you guys were kicking ass when it came compared to the other
to Ogakor.
You were kicking, you beat them many times in a row, and had abundance of food between the fish and the chickens and the pig. There was a lot more going on compared. But yeah, that makes sense that at some point, maybe you get a little bit, you think people were getting a little bit, not greedy, but abundant. We have abundance. Let's eat more.
I mean, they could have been. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. I mean, the more I think that something makes sense,
Right.
somebody else
Oh,
comes
yeah,
along.
your
I'm
only
like,
your own experience. Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, there was opportunity to get other food out there. And then, on the different challenges that you're talking about with getting strong and abundance, one of the big differences now versus when the first few seasons played on that particular season episode in Australia that I got voted off on, there was, I think we had 7 people on my tribe, and they were down to maybe 5. When we went and we did the challenge I got voted off on, they made all 7 of us play running through a maze versus 5 of them in a group. And to me, now they make people sit out, and we had been sitting people out in some of the other challenges. That one they made us all play, and that I don't think was right, because
Jeff like prefaces, he's like, there's no clear advantage or disadvantage to running with 7, but there's an obvious disadvantage because it's 2 extra people that have to keep up.
I thought he actually said it's going to be harder for them because they have more people.
He did not say that.
He didn't say that?
No, He said there's no obvious advantage or disadvantage, so you're going to run with all 7.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Interesting.
To me, I mean, obviously, you heard little kids, you got one distracted, but it's just more bodies that are bouncing into each other that have to stop and start. And I didn't, not just because I got voted out, but it's like, okay, so on other challenges, people were, being set out. And now you're saying that we're not going to. So there was no consistency with that. So was that because getting frustrated that Kucha kept winning? I don't know.
Right.
Is that a subliminal way to give Ogakor a better
Another
chance?
production little tweak, maybe?
It's always really interesting to me that, the one challenge that was just visually kind of very impressive and scary was jumping off the cliff into the water and then going through a rapid. And just because I know about rapids, but then first of all, I was so concerned for Roger, who just learned to swim and he's barely treading water, and it looked really dangerous to me.
You're up there and you're looking down and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What am I getting myself
20
into?
or 30 feet or something. It seemed.
I think it was like 30 feet. I mean, it was just.
It was like a lot. This season, they wanted you to do a lot of dangerous things.
Yes.
First jumping out of a plane and now jumping off a cliff. And,
right. And climbing your butt to tribal council every couple of days.
And then a fire happening right by your camp, literally down
that's another
trees.
Thing. Like having to endure that smoke, and because they must have known that it was like, okay, I guess you're not it was brush fires, I guess, in the outback. They just,
and it was worse for the other tribe, right? Like it was a lot closer to their camp than yours, or
that was after I was gone, but it's definitely a common thing out there for it to happen. Again, something they tell you about in your little, before you go out there. But but it's definitely you don't think it's going to happen, and then when you're out there, your mind plays tricks on you. So I wasn't there, but I would be sitting there and being like, okay, now what do you do? Like, you don't know how bad the smoke is going to be. You don't know how close it's going to get. Just like that in Cambodia, it was like, okay, they're telling you, what to do in case of a tsunami. And now it's like, okay, I never even thought about a tsunami coming out here. I thought about backstabbing and starving and drowning, by swimming. Now you got me thinking about a tsunami if I'm on land, if I'm going to be taken out. Right. I mean, it's just, there's so many things that could go on. It's just crazy.
And you weren't there, but with Mike falling in his hands,
into the fire.
Yes.
Fire in his hands.
Like, so Mom, you have seen it. I've been waiting for you to watch that.
Yeah. I have to go forward because we're
jumping forward, but
I was focusing on Kimmi's episodes.
I'm sorry.
No, Kimmi, I do want to ask, what was you keep mentioning Cambodia, and we're talking a little bit about, how they drove you and everything. What was the biggest difference for you, like going in 20 years later, whatever it was, was it the gameplay that was the biggest like shock, or was it the production value with the competitions? Like, what was the biggest change for you and having to adapt to?
Definitely production was a much bigger scale. And just there was a lot more precautions. Like even when when I signed my life away to go to Australia, I think it was like 12 pages that I had to sign. And my parents and my siblings all had to sign saying, she could come back missing a limb in a body bag, whatever. The second time I played, it was like 40 something pages that everybody had to sign. And it was like, really? I mean,
you talked to a psychologist or something?
Yeah. You have you go through all kinds of psychological evaluations. And it's funny because you're doing all of this in in the hotel. So you get called out of your hotel room when you're out in LA because you're there for like a week. The first time I think we were there for like nine or 10 days, but going back to Cambodia, they don't have to do those one-on-one interviews because they already know you. You do some press stuff and you do your psychological evaluations, but then you also go and see the doctor. And the doctor is in like room 614. You just take in an elevator, you go in there, and they're like, okay, here you go. Here's a shot. You're getting your vaccines in a hotel room. It just seems so freaking shady. Like never would you ever think, but they just brought everything there, and you're just going into like one hotel room for pictures, one hotel room for this. So the production was different to get there. And then once we were in Cambodia, I guess the gameplay was very different because I had played when there were no idols. There was no hidden immunity idols or advantages or any of these things.
All the twists and turns.
And no tribe swaps or anything.
No.
You guys ended up with a third tribe too, right? Is that the first time they'd done that? Or had they always done that? Because
They do it sometimes. I don't think it was the first time, but it was after a lot of seasons that they decided to do something like that.
Does it seem like I haven't watched every episode, but I know kind of the overall. I did my best because I'm not there yet. There was a lot more strategy. You played a lot more strategy in that.
Yes.
Everyone, correct?
Yes, but it was also hard because again, in my head, I'm still thinking, when I had played, there weren't immunity idols. And yes, you see people on TV and subsequent seasons. Yes, I know that they're out there. And it's like, you might be looking, but I'm not going out there for 3 hours digging around because that's just not my thing. But there were so many people that had just played so recently and they knew each other. Like I played the second season. So I knew Jeff Varner, we were both on both seasons, but he was on the other tribe and he didn't make the merge. So we didn't get to play together. I don't want to give everything away if you haven't seen it.
Well, no,
I've seen it.
I read all about it and I watched a 30-minute breakdown just so because I knew I was like, I'm a researcher and I couldn't watch the whole season.
But that's good. But so for instance, the final 6 people who were in Cambodia, it was me and 5 other people. 3 of those people had played together the year before, and 2 of those people had played together the year before, like a year and a half before.
So that's not really fair.
So you have like these people that have relationships and they have more, the evolution of the game. They knew the gameplay a little bit more. Like I said, my strategy, I learned from the first time, keep my mouth shut, get some food and mind my business. And
you made it really, really far.
Yeah, that's what I did, because my thing was, like I said, the first time I was out there having an adventure. The second time I had my babies at home. They were in elementary school. And, look, if I'm going to be away from my babies this long, every day that I am out here, it's more money for my babies. And that's what it was. It becomes a job. Yes. Yep. That's what it was. I'm just going to do my best.
Let me ask you, like this many years later, what are your feelings today about being a part of just such a groundbreaking series? And why do you think it resonated so strongly with the audience that we're still talking about it so much?
I mean, I am so proud of it. I'm just like, it's just a blessing to have been part of the opportunity and to do it. I mean, there's a lot of personal growth that you get while you're there. You just learn about people, you learn about what's important, your own strengths. It's a really amazing like cleanse for your body and your mind when you're out there. I mean, you realize, okay, I don't need the material things. It's about the memories. I can rely on myself when I can't rely on other people. And then there are some great people that are out there that you can become friends with. And it's like watching any kind of sport or somebody doing something that they love and succeeding. Like I always want to cheer for that, for people, it's like, look, they pushed themselves and didn't know they can do it. It's like, you get proud for these people, other seasons and other episodes that I've watched. It's like, oh my gosh, look at them. I want them to do it and succeed. And I think that's why Survivor has done so well, because there's somebody on the cast that everybody can relate to. And that's just what makes it more human. It's like, we're not playing somebody. It's really, really hard to go out there and say, all right, well, I'm only going to act like this or do this, because the environment, once you're out there, you can't keep up a charade. It's just too exhausting. But if you're yourself, even though when you're out there, the people might not click or like you, somebody's rooting for you. Either somebody in your hometown that doesn't know you, somebody that you went to school with. So it's just amazing. And it's funny because, gosh, when did I first play? It's been over 20 years.
It was 2000.
23, 24 years.
Yeah, it was
3-ish.
Yeah, 2001. It was shot.
Okay. So I mean, it's over 20 years, and when everybody was on COVID lockdown, there were people that had never watched it or had only been watching current seasons, and they started binge watching all of the earlier seasons. Right. And in the past couple months, I'm up in Atlantic Beach sometimes in Jacksonville at night, and where my boyfriend and I will be biking and drinking, and next thing you know, there's like 17-year-olds. They're like, Kimmi, is that you? And it's like, huh? It's like, your parents probably didn't even know each other when my season was on.
Right.
And now they're like, oh my God, total fangirling because COVID brought it. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And it's happened multiple times. And usually it still happens with older people, but it's younger people that had never seen it because, now that they saw this, they like the gameplay and the strategy and the learning that they're going back to the beginning season. So
I was a year old.
Right.
Yeah.
I was a year old when your first season came out.
Oh my gosh.
What season did you? How did you start watching Survivor? Did you start at the beginning, or did you discover something like in high school and say, okay, I like the show, I'm going to go back?
So I said this on the last episode, such a random funny story. I actually was watching a season and I got invited over to watch an episode at Jeff Probst's house. And yeah, so random.
How is that? He wouldn't even invite me.
It wasn't me invited. So one of my best friends in dance class, her dad is an actor who was really good friends with Jeff Probst. So I got invited. It was Tony's season, the cop, the bald headed.
Yep.
And I watched that. So I watched it when I was younger. And then it wasn't COVID time, but I watched a season on Netflix. It was like season 30 something. But then the only other season available was, I believe it was your All-Star season. And I was like, well, I don't want to watch an All-Star season without knowing people. So I went back from season 1 and I'm not all the way through it yet, but I'm getting there. It's been a year and a half. But yeah, so I did the same thing. I went back and I started at the beginning and it's crazy. Great. I love it.
Yeah. There's an evolution.
It's an evolution.
I do want to know, I asked Kelly the same thing. Who was one of your favorite people you played either season with? Any friendships? I know you still speak with Kelly, but who was one of your favorite people you've ever played the game with?
I loved Kelly because we had a really good connection out there. I was actually very close to Fishback out there, and people didn't know that, but it's like we called each other, this is my tribe wife and my tribe husband, because we got along really, really well. And of course, I absolutely love Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jeremy is just one of the greatest human beings you will ever meet in your life. And it's just nice to have those good memories. I mean, most everybody that I played with on Bion, we got along really well. But Jeremy and I, we never left Bion Beach with all the tribe swaps and merge, everything. We never swapped. So we were there from day one until the vote off. And so we just got very close, being out there. And I just love him as a person.
I love that. I like hearing that, because you said in your first season, you didn't mesh as well, but then knowing that, the relationships you see on television, like that they're real, like it's another layer to this show that, people act like they're playing the game and they don't care about friendships or anything, but knowing that real friendships are made. That's what I've enjoyed most about speaking with Kelly too. I like knowing that there is like real emotion, like people aren't just brick walls playing a game to win money. There's human emotion behind it. So,
and that's why things really hurt, when you're out there and things can sting. Like I like the day that Kelly got voted off, nobody told me, because they knew that we were close.
Right.
And we just, she and I were both more simple with things. We had our kids and we could talk, and we were just so relatable. And when she got voted off, like I was just like, I went back to camp and I was bawling my eyes out. And then like the next tribal council, when I saw her, sitting, and she was part of the jury, and I'm sitting there, we're like this, giving each other little heart loves and stuff over their hands, because it was just like, my friend's not here.
Oh, can we talk about getting voted off? Because like in both seasons, so the first season, it happens, and I think that's one of the things that, like as an audience, as a watcher, you're always thinking like, what's going on in their head? It feels like, your flame is getting doused. Although yours, I think, got rained on, didn't it?
Yes.
I was like, he's like, Mother Nature already did this one.
Oh, thank you.
So what's going through your mind? And then immediately after, do they feed you? Do they shower you? Or is it like, so.
So I totally knew I was getting voted out. Not that anybody told me, but Stevie Wonder could see I was getting voted off. Okay. It was horrible. Everybody had something to say, and it was like, okay, because I didn't have a buddy, so that's fine. But it's still, it hurts, because you go out there and it's like, oh my gosh, you had all these hopes and dreams of being there, and okay, it's cut short. So it's like you just sit there and it's like, all right, you're humbled, and it's once, I guess for me, because I wasn't blindsided, I had already kind of come to terms, but still you get a little choked up, and the tears kind of like well up, and it's like, okay, I did the best I could. What else am I going to do? You can only have one person winning. Everybody that's playing wanted that same goal that I had. Only one of us is going to get it. So from there, they went and took us. I don't know. I don't even remember how we got back, but I did have a candy bar. They had like a basket full of like your favorite foods, everybody's favorite candy bar, because they don't know who's getting voted off. So when we had originally played, they had sandwiches and everybody's favorite candy bars. I'm like, oh, I got a candy bar and I got a Coke. I had a Twix bar. So a Twix bar was the very first thing I put in my mouth after that, and went back to Ponderosa and got kicked out of Ponderosa because they were still working on Ponderosa the first couple of seasons.
What is that? So what's Ponderosa?
It's like when you get voted off, it's like where they sequester you to after.
Yes. So the first season, they called it Ponderosa because that's the name of the place that they were at. The place, its name was Ponderosa. It was out in Borneo somewhere. Or so what they were doing the first season is, as people got voted off, they sent them home. And then just the jury was staying there. And then for my season, they were like, well, if people know that this person was only gone for 2 weeks, they know that they didn't win. So then that's when they had everybody in my season stay in Australia. So we all flew to Australia the same day and we all flew home. The problem was they were only again having the jury stay at what they were calling Ponderosa. So they sent us off to places, and you had a handler that was supposed to help you and take care of you to know where you were. My girl was not as responsible, and she basically gave me 1,500 Australian dollars and was like, here, meet us back at the airport in 4 weeks. This is the day we're leaving. And I basically was just left. And that was supposed to pay for my food, drink, travel, everything. And so
4 weeks?
Oh, yeah. So I was staying at hostels for a couple dollars a night, eating. Yeah, I had I think I turned 27 or 28 out there, and I was in a hostel eating oatmeal in the morning. But I was using my money because we didn't have our own money to access and stuff. So I had just been traveling. So but I'd saved that money. Instead of staying in hotels, I went and I stayed in the hostels so I could do things. And I went to snorkeling in the Great Barrier Reef, and I went to Lady Elliot Island, and I went to amusement parks, and I was having a ball. But
so you got to have an additional little adventure on top of that.
Yes, but then once I got on the airplane and I found out from other people that they were putting up, like Jeff Varner, I was put up in a 5-star hotel and everything, and I'm going, what the heck? I had to portion out my money along the way. So they did reimburse me for some things because I guess I might have had a credit card or some of my own cash. But I know that I didn't have full access to do whatever I wanted. So that was a little bit different. That was fun. But later on when we got voted out off of in Cambodia, our Ponderosa was this little tent city on a beach, with a couple of cabins. So
you're just kind of extending, but now with food, and you can
yes,
and just have some more comforts, because you end up on the jury, right?
Yes. And it was just such a whirlwind, because at that point, then I think they were doing the tribal councils every day at the end. Oh. There was only one day in between, maybe two. Yeah,
less people to cover, so they can get things done quickly.
Exactly.
They don't need a lot of footage of you guys resting in the hammocks.
No, because literally you have no energy when you're getting past the halfway point. Even after a couple of weeks, your body is just tired. You're tired because
you're not sleeping. Your quality of sleep has got to be. Do you think that the location of the outback was more difficult than Cambodia, or did they each have their different challenges?
They're both challenging. I think because it didn't have the ocean, for me, that was more challenging with the outback. But Cambodia, we were there during monsoon season. So, you had a couple of days where we were literally sitting out there. We couldn't move because it's thunder and lightning, and we didn't eat for 2 days because we were just huddled in the rain, and you're just sitting there. Emotionally, it was harder in Cambodia because, again, I left my kids at home, and you're just sitting there okay, what's going on with them? And then because we were voted back that second time, when I was in Cambodia, the hardest thing was when I left my children, I didn't know if I was leaving for 4 or 5 days or for 2 months, because we found out on live TV if we were going to Cambodia. So I had left my kids at home in Texas, with one of my girlfriends, and I'm like, okay. And I had to make arrangements with the school and say, okay, if I'm leaving, then they're going to be missing the last week of school. So I had to withdraw them. And then my mother was flying from Florida to go to Texas to pick up my kids, take them back there. I mean, but I don't know what happens because, I say goodbye to my kids. And I got to talk to them on the phone and say goodbye. But after that, it's like, did they make it to Florida? I don't know. I mean, you just assume so because you would have heard, they didn't get kidnapped. But it's just, as a mom, I felt like I totally abandoned my kids.
Oh, we've had a lot of that discussion too.
We've dealt with some emotional trauma from my childhood about that.
Flying away a lot. I'm like, bye. I'm in a different country for 4 seasons. Yeah. She's like, why can't you just work at Trader Joe's, Mom? And I'm like, well, anyway, that's what she said. That's my ones. But I'm curious. Kelly said she ended up quite ill because she was there for the duration. Did you have any health issues afterwards, or was it hard to get back? Like, what was reentry like? Reentries always can be a challenge when you've been in the outback or in the elements.
I mean, food. It took me a couple of months to eat normal food because, you're not having processed food, you're not having salt, you're not having sugars, you're not having the chemical enhancers and stuff. So that, there were some times when you ate, and it's like, you better be right near that bathroom. Because it really messed you up. But the funniest thing that messed me up was daylight. Because we were just always used to going to bed when the sun went down and waking up when the sun came up. So even though now I moved, I went back to Houston, and here I am in Houston. Well, the sun is starting to go down, and I'm just like a light switch, even though the time zone, it's 12 hours difference, but my body, it's like, oh, the sun went down. I'm ready to go to bed, like 8:00. Like I would literally be driving my car exhausted because my body was just, sun went down. It was time for sleep.
You went back to like the cycles that our ancestors would do.
Yes.
That's how humans normally would do it. But you're still like, okay, there's homework to be done, dinner, football.
Exactly. There's a whole life, and it's like, it's 8:00. I gotta be up. I can't be going to bed at 8:00. Who does this?
Wow.
But that was it was just amazing. And that probably lasted a good month or so, where it's like I'd be out and I was with my girlfriends, and I'm like, all of a sudden, like, oh boy, yep. Just that light's
going down. Time for bed.
Yes. Yep.
Well, if you could talk to your younger self, like, what would you tell her?
My younger self playing the game, or my younger self in general?
Well, either one.
Or
playing the game before. Yeah. After
probably,
all the life lessons, that you've learned.
Trust your instincts more, and believe when people tell you if they are not good enough for you, or they're not in a place in their life to be around you. Like, my tendency is to fix people with a bird with a broken wing, whether it be friendships or relationship. Even jobs, staying somewhere around something. If somebody's saying, I'm just not in a healthy spot, you know what? It's not my job to fix them. Because whatever they're going through, you got to let them sometimes go through it, and it's okay to walk away. And it's sometimes just okay to say that you don't want to do something because you don't want to do it. And you don't owe people an explanation for how you live your life. And that's with the game. I don't owe you an explanation for why I'm making my decisions. I have my reasons, and might not be your business. And I think that's okay for people to put up boundaries.
That's a great lesson. If somebody says, instead of taking it personally, because what's going on with other people, even though you say, how can I be there for you? How can I love? And it's like, I can't be there for you. And to have the strength and wherewithal to say, okay, moving on.
I'll take that advice right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing. It's like, wait, this person's like, there's a person in front of me saying like, this isn't, and it's like to have the strength to say, I'm going to take that as a truth, and I'm not going to continue to pursue something that's like right in front of my face. Yeah, I get what you're saying for sure. That's a good lesson. That's a good lesson. And I also like the, and it's taken me, cause like my nickname is Mindy Mouth, but I also know when to shut the fuck up. That's a good one. It's like, you don't need to say, I don't need to say everything that's going on in my brain. And it's not censoring. It's just being at ease with not having the last word or being right. Do I want to be right or happy? It's like, or just letting people like, you can win. I don't have to win, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. That's perfect. Yeah. It doesn't matter. There's so much petty stuff in the world all over the place that it's just, you know what? Find the grace to let things go.
In the grand scheme of things, it is interesting how much we focus on little things and if ever I find myself focusing on something that's just petty or small, it's taken me a long time to kind of take myself out and say, wow, when you actually think about how small we are in this vast universe, does it really matter? Does it really matter right now?
You sound just like my mom. My mom always says, like, give yourself grace. And you're like, oh, yeah. Just now I was
your middle name is Grace.
There you go. That's the G and the CG.
Yeah.
Great.
My mom's always like, give yourself grace, like things like that. And then you just said something like that. Like, you guys are both giving me the exact same you're just giving the same advice that my mom gives me. So
we're moms and we've done stupid things growing up to get here. It's not because we're smarter. It's just because we have more life experience, and maybe we were lucky and got to do some stupid things along the way and learn. But I think
that's his most, one of the things that I think as parents, we want to protect or make sure our kids don't make the same mistakes. And I think that's wrong. Kids, every human being is on their journey.
Yeah.
Mistakes or choices that might not work out need to be normalized just as much as successes. And I think that's what I'm gaining from, you don't necessarily have to go on Survivor to have an outdoor experience, like going like Kelly on, she's invited CG and I to go on this rafting trip in India next year. And CG's like, yes, let's. And it's like, yeah, it's just doing an experience like that can teach you so much about life and what's important, and materialistic things not meaning anything, and connections and being collectively a part of something where you're all in the outdoors and you all have to work together to get somewhere. That to me is life-changing.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing. I mean, it's like a defining moment in your life where it's like, okay, where you make that switch from maybe when you're now practicing what you preach, that the material things don't matter and other people's opinions of you don't matter.
That's a big one.
Because you're going to do that and you can celebrate. And you know what? I get really upset because if I do something and I'm proud, or work or something for my kids, or I accomplish something, I think people are afraid to celebrate their own victories. Like they feel like, okay, well, people are going to think that I'm being arrogant. You're not being arrogant. Look, if you busted your ass and you got a college degree, or you busted your ass and you were depressed and today you got out of bed, celebrate that. I think it's okay for people to celebrate themselves and not have the opinions, of other people matter. And that's, a big thing. Go out and do an accomplishment and
celebrate and be. I absolutely. I had that same advice once from an acting teacher. He said, nobody else is going to toot your horn. You need to, and as long as it's coming from a place of love, where it's like, I am proud of myself. And it's like what CG was saying, when I say treat yourself with grace, we're our own worst critics and we tend to beat ourselves up. But would you talk the way our inner voice, the way we talk to ourselves, would we talk to our best friends that way? And it's like, so if I ever find myself talking to myself in a negative way, I'd stop and say, you're doing the best you can in any given moment. You're doing the best you can. And I think I think that's one of the great things about Survivor is you're watching everybody do the best they can. And hopefully they can walk. I'm sure everyone has a different experience, but if they can walk away, hopefully without resentment or anger or the process of like processing what you just went through without, I'm sure some people came out of it better than others.
Yeah. I mean, but sometimes it's just being brave to get on an airplane. Yeah. Some of these people had never been on an airplane. Some of these people had never left the country. Some of these people have, phobias or anxiety or of, meeting new people, or I don't know, whatever. Like Roger had to overcome not being able to swim, It's all these different victories. And then the opportunity, like the first time that I played, I was so disappointed in myself because I watched my season when it came out, and then I didn't watch it again until less than a year before I was asked to do Second Chances. My boys had known I was on Survivor. They had never seen it. And they were in elementary school, and it's like, okay, they would hear stories. So it's like, all right, boys, we're going to watch it. So they got to see mom eating a worm and stuff. And then it was literally a couple months later that I got the phone call to do it again. So I was like, okay, see, this is a great opportunity to share with people that even though this opportunity didn't present itself and it didn't go as well as I had hoped the first time, hey, it came around, right. It came around a second time. And even though people were mad at me the first time when I played, because I wouldn't eat a cow brain. I remember I was in a store in Stony Brook in New York, and this woman came up to me and she was like, I was really proud of you, and you were a good example for my daughter to not succumb to peer pressure, because you stood up by yourself when everybody wanted you to just eat the cow brain. But for your own beliefs, you said that you weren't going to do it. And that made me proud, for something that I was like embarrassed for out, when I was doing it, because my tribe mates, they were being like all, why can't you just do it? Just do it. Just do it. And I stood alone. Mm-hmm. And then having somebody say something like that, I mean, it was very flattering.
Opinions don't necessarily, I mean, every perspective could be different, right?
Yeah.
So you ate that mangrove, which was grosser to me. I was like your tongue was black from it. And I was like, do you remember the taste, or did you plug your nose?
It had like a little inkwell in it. The best way I can describe it is like, like a little Christmas tree light, how small they are. Mm-hmm. But if you push it, it would crunch.
Yes.
That's exactly like what was in there, because it was fine. And then all of a sudden I went crunch, and it felt like little
a spine, or like, Hakuna Matata, man.
And then it came out, and it was funny because the funniest thing was everybody was telling me, oh my gosh, Kimmi, your tongue, it's so black. Your tongue is black. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm thinking I have like, food in my teeth from like worm guts. It wasn't until the episode aired when they showed it, I'm like, oh my God, is that what my tongue looked like? Because I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was that bad.
Oh,
it was funny.
It wasn't bad. It was awesome.
It was awesome.
Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh, CG, do you have any more questions for this lovely woman? It's so great to meet you guys.
I don't think so. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I mean, these Survivor episodes have been my favorite ones that my mom has done so far. So just thank you again for talking to us. Yeah.
She's like, we're in my house now, Mom.
She was making me watch all these old movies. I'm like, this is my domain.
Okay, well, that's good. Now. That's good. You get to learn from each other. That's awesome. Well, if you guys do go on a trip to India with Kelly river rafting, I want the invite too. I haven't seen Kelly in a couple of years.
It's specifically for women, and she found out that there are no female guides. So at the end of the trip, she's doing a female guide school for
I just love her. I love her. The last time I saw her, she came to Florida, I guess about 4 years ago, and me and my sons went with her and her group and went surfing. So I got to go out and hang out. She's very
adventurous like that. River rafting, surfing. She's said skiing in Northern California, all that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I feel lazy.
Oh, she is Superwoman, but I got to get out there and do stuff, because now that I'm 50, I'm not quite as spry as I was. So I got to work up to things sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I mean, if, just because I can, we can add, else do you think I should talk to from season 2? Are you friends with Jeff?
I talked to Jeff Varner. Yeah.
Who are you still friends with Jeff? Who else?
I talk to him once in a while. I love Jervis from season 1.
Yeah.
He and I have always stayed in touch all these years. Cass. I
think that's a great idea. Talking to Cass. I think
Cass is awesome.
Great.
I talked to Cass and I talked to Deb. Deb, who was voted out
first.
Was
voted out first. We didn't mention her. I forgot to mention that. Was it was it just, it was her time, or just she personality? Like what?
You know what? Just because she didn't get along with everybody, because she's a responsible person. We had a lot of irresponsible people on our tribe doing stupid stuff, and she's a little bit more.
She was
disciplined with things. She wanted the fire. She wanted the shelter. She wanted to make sure everything was taken care of. And
it rubbed the wrong. It was too much.
And I feel, I have terrible guilt about it, because Deb's a great person. She's really, really good. And I think that she and I could have gotten along well there. But I think when you're first out there, you're panicking. And I'll put down anybody's name as long as it's not mine.
Right.
And I think her name was unfairly put down because of that, as like a self-preservation. I would say that she was the sacrifice. Right. And that. It's hard to say that, but it's the honest truth,
right?
And I think she would have done well out there, because, I mean, she was the only one that was, at her house, she was saying, like, practicing making fire and doing things. And you know what?
It would have been helpful for the survival part for the tribe, probably too.
Yeah. I mean, of course, your elements are different. Your different trees and stuff wherever she was in Massachusetts or wherever versus out there. But you know what? She tried it and she did it. So kudos to her. But again, out there, like I said, I was in my 20s. I knew it all.
Yeah.
Right.
No. 50s are when you're like, I really know nothing.
Nothing. I got nothing for you. Blank. And I'll tell people. And I said something to my son the other day. I said, sweetheart, I have no idea. I'm completely ignorant on that subject. And my son was like, Mom, don't ever tell yourself that you're ignorant. I said, well, I don't. He goes, tell yourself you're uneducated, but you're not ignorant. I'm like, it's really the same thing at that point. But okay, yes, I'm not going to argue. I'm going to have some grace. But I appreciated him pointing out that I shouldn't feed myself with bad things, like you were saying. Okay. I just haven't learned it yet.
I love it. I love it so much. This has been such a joy. I love it. And I would love to meet you in person one day. And
I know we're going to go to India.
We'll go to India.
And can we drink wine? Because I feel like I should have been drinking wine this whole time.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Well,
I really appreciate it
so much for joining us here. We have had such a blast, and thank you again so much. It's really
so much fun.
Well, it's great to talk about this, and one of the reasons I got into podcasting is I love meeting new people, and I like talking about the nostalgia of it's television and film and all that, but it's also the life experiences that and you answered that question just beautifully about how do we, why do we do the things we do, and what are the life lessons? And because that's what life is, it's just a series of lessons, and how do we enhance that and connect with people? And I just think it's really cool and super admirable. And your attitude is so wonderful and joyful. And it's been such a pleasure. So thank you.
I really appreciate that, because it's, it might not have all had ever happened, because when I was applying, I remember one of my friends in New York said, why the hell would you even apply? What the hell makes you think that they would want you? And that hurt, because this is somebody that I cared about. They
wanted you before you even got to the ground floor.
Well, and we always know that
choice.
Thank you.
What comes out of people's mouths is about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, and anybody who wants to, why are you this person? Because their perception, it's more about their perception of, you're like, wow, that's the way you think of me.
Yeah. Well, and that I think was a lot of the hurt. It was like, why wouldn't you just say, go for it? because that's what I would do. Support it and just say go for it. But when he said to me, what makes you think that they would want you? And I was like, this was a good friend of mine. And I was like,
that reveals his fear
I
of
don't
rejection.
know.
That reveals somebody else's fear of rejection. And what you said about production, when I hadn't really, a point that you made saying people who hadn't been out of the state or on a plane, that's kind of a brilliance in casting. They're not having outdoor experts and all river guides and all that. They're bringing in just they want average, ordinary people that are living their lives because they need to see. That's the point of the show. You're not supposed to all be experts.
Yep. You get somebody that represents a different part of the country and now a different part of the world. You know, if you can get the small town guy and, you know, the big city girl and, you know, how, and see what they can do. I mean, there's a lot of times when you realize that at the end of the day, no matter how much education, how much money, how much traveling or life experience, at the end of the day, when you're stripped of everything, you're all pretty much the same. And, you know, those stereotypes can be broken down.
Absolutely. Wow. On that note, we could continue chatting.
I mean, that's a great note to end on.
We'll get together when we get to season 31 in detail. We'll, you know.
Yes, come back. But I really appreciate you guys having me. I really do.
Thank you so
again,
much,
Kimmi.
I appreciate it so much.
Okay. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
So thank you guys for listening to our episode with Kimmi Kappenberg. We had so much fun. Please follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to watch us, you can watch this episode on YouTube. For additional content and live Zooms with us, you can go and sign up for our Patreon for some behind-the-scenes content. And we live watch Big Brother Evictions on Thursdays. You can also follow us on our social medias. I am CGMIR on Instagram and TikTok. And my mom is the Melinda Clark on Instagram and TikTok. And don't forget to follow at Bye Bitches Podcast on Instagram. With that being said,
bye.
Bitches.
Bitches. Okay, bye.